All right. Welcome to Family Support Center's Sexual Assault Awareness Month webinar series. My name is Annette and I'm the sexual assault advocate for Eau Claire County. Family Support Center's Sexual Assault Program has webinars planned throughout the month of April. You can find the schedule and information on signing up for those webinars on our Facebook page and website. Family Support Center provides services to individuals and families affected by intimate partner and domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and other forms of interpersonal violence in Chippewa and Eau Claire counties. We have offices in Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire, and the University of Eau Claire campus. Our services are free and confidential and include our 24/7 crisis and support line, advocacy-based counseling, medical information, support and accompaniment, legal information, support and accompaniment, tools, resources, and referrals for our clients, and support and educational groups. Before I start today's webinar, I want to acknowledge that survivors' experiences of sexual assault and abuse vary widely, as do the ways each person copes and processes trauma. I hope this presentation will provide you with a helpful place to start in your own sexual recovery process. If you have a personal history of sexual assault or abuse and feel activated while watching this webinar, please take care of yourself and reach out for support if needed. A Family Support Center advocate is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 715-723-1138. Some things to consider as you start. This process can be emotionally difficult and take time. It's like the children's song, Going on a Bear Hunt. You can't go over it, you can't go under it, you have to go through it. The thing about healing is you have to process that trauma. It's important to be thoughtful and intentional and ask yourself the following questions. How do you want your sex life to be different? What are you hoping to gain? Is the motivation to work on this coming from you? Encouragement from a partner can be great. Pressure from a partner can make the process more difficult. Have you identified triggers you'd like to overcome? What will successful healing look like to you? If you don't have a partner, if you do have a partner, consider bringing them on board. Their awareness and cooperation and patience can facilitate your healing process. But you don't need a partner to be actively sexual and start your sexual healing process. Be sure you take care of yourself while you're going on this journey. Your brain and body may be expending a lot of energy bracing against unwanted sensory experiences. Be sure to eat well and drink plenty of water. Get the sleep your body needs. Talk to yourself with compassion and patience, like you would talk to a child or a friend. Do something you enjoy at least once a week and notice your pleasure. Move your body and be in your body while you're doing it. Pay attention to your breathing. Notice when you're holding your breath or breathing shallowly and breathe deeply again. Give yourself credit for taking the steps that you're taking. Examine possible substance abuse issues. It isn't uncommon for survivors of trauma to dull their pain with drugs, alcohol, or eating disorders as a coping mechanism, and seek out community supports if needed. It's also important to start from a place of safety. How do you feel in your body? What's your baseline? Do you feel safe? Do you feel unsettled? Is your environment safe and free of violence and abuse? Does your partner consider your needs and wants and desires as important as their own? Do they come to the relationship with good intentions and a willingness to communicate? And most importantly, listen. Do you have the power to act on your own behalf and take care of yourself? Are you making your own choices, not feeling pressured, pushed, or manipulated? This checklist can provide reassurance that you are safe, even if you find yourself not necessarily feeling safe while you're working through this process. Recovery can feel uncomfortable and scary at times, so being able to tell yourself you're objectively safe is essential. So let's talk about addressing the trauma. Sometimes things can be a bit murky, and it could take a while before you recognize your experience as abuse or assault. Abusers can be very good at rationalizing their actions and confusing their victims. Sometimes it takes time and distance before you're able to make sense of the experience and recognize the issues you're experiencing may be trauma related. Sometimes trauma can be compounded by society's unhealthy messages about sex or the religion or culture we grew up in. The belief that virginity is a measure of a woman's worth or moral standing can leave a sexual assault survivor feeling like they're damaged goods. The evangelical purity movement is one example of that, cultural or religious expectation or belief. Sex as a duty or obligation in a marriage or relationship can lead a person to believe refusing sex would make them a bad partner. Shame or unacceptance of a person's sexual identity can lead a person to believe their feelings are wrong and their relationship illegitimate. Gender stereotypes regarding sex could make a male sexual assault survivor feel as if he's possibly less of a man. Shame regarding masturbation can inhibit sex and body positivity and make sexual pleasure seem dirty. Some sexual assault or abuse survivors feel guilty or ashamed by the sexual responses their bodies had. It's important to remember that sexual responses can be automatic and you're not bad or wrong for having had that experience. Your body and sexuality didn't betray you, your perpetrator did. Facing those experiences and self-forgiveness are part of this process. Some common reactions after sexual assault. Individual experiences vary, of course, but some common reactions after sexual assault include not wanting to be touched, not initiating or wanting sex, nausea when thinking about or engaging in sexual activity, numbness, physical or emotional, decrease or avoidance of sex, maybe waiting till your partner goes to bed and you're sure that they're asleep before going to bed yourself, inability to become aroused, diminished sexual satisfaction or pleasure from sex, approaching sex as an obligation, being emotionally distant or not present during sex, difficulty establishing or maintaining an intimate relationship, or compulsive or inappropriate sexual behaviors. Sometimes survivors feel shame or guilt about choices they've made since their assault. It's important to allow yourself some grace for past choices you may be feeling badly about now. You may have said yes to sex you didn't really want. You may not have realized you didn't want it until after it was over. You may have had sex to fill needs that weren't necessarily sexual. Maybe having sex when what you really needed was human connection or to be held. These are survival strategies. Sometimes we act in ways that hurt us as an attempt at self-preservation. Be compassionate with yourself for past choices while taking responsibility for caring for yourself now. Part of taking care of yourself includes getting the routine medical care you may have been putting off because the thought of a pelvic exam is just too much. Linda Poyer from Willow Creek Women's Clinic gives this advice. Be as open and honest with your provider as possible. Expressing anxiety or worry about the exam is okay and helps the provider accommodate your needs better. If it becomes too much, it's okay to ask for the exam to be stopped. It's okay to bring a trusted loved one to the exam if that makes you feel less worried or more grounded. Feel free to express concerns or worries you may have about the sexual assault. For example, if you have a fear that you could have been physically altered or damaged in some way, it's okay to express that and get feedback about a particular concern. Write down any concerns you may have ahead of time to allow you to feel more prepared. It's common to feel afraid or apprehensive about getting an exam following a traumatic experience, so don't give yourself a hard time about it. She says, our goal as your provider is to make sure your exam is not another trauma situation or cause any more pain or fear. We are here to walk with you through this experience as you regain your sense of self-control. If you feel your current provider may not be sensitive to your experience or current needs, it may be a good time to find one that you can build a trusting relationship with. Trauma responses. Trauma responses are a result of your brain being rewired to interpret certain situations as life-threatening danger and sending urgent signals to your survivor brain. If you think of your brain as an overly sensitive smoke detector, then when the smoke detector is working correctly, it can be life-saving. When it's gone a little haywire, it can be very disruptive at worst or annoying at best. Some survivors' brain signals are like a smoke detector going off when they or someone else blows out a match. With some work, their wiring can improve. After a little while, it won't go off unless a candle is blown out. Then when toast is burnt. Finally, after some work and time, it won't go off unless it's a real emergency, like dinner burning or the house on fire. Common trauma responses survivors can experience during sex include flashbacks, which can be intrusive or disturbing sexual thoughts or images, freezing up, fear, sometimes that can be overwhelming, feeling dirty, ashamed, self-hatred, or anxious, or dissociation, which is kind of checking out, not being present. So what is dissociation? Dissociation is a temporary survival technique and a normal and healthy response to a traumatic experience. It's the brain's creative attempt to manage the experience of being abused or assaulted. It allows you to get away from the immediate pain and fear of the situation, but can continue long after its usefulness has passed and continue to happen when you aren't in any danger any longer. It can become an automatic response to closeness, intensity, fear, or sexuality. So how can you tell if you're dissociating? People can experience in a few different ways. Sometimes you feel like you're floating out of your body. Sometimes it's like going deep inside where no one can find you, touch you, or get to you. Sometimes it involves focusing on an object in the room or around you. For others, it can be singing or talking to yourself, either in your head or out loud. If you've experienced dissociation in the past, it's likely you'll continue to dissociate in the same way. When your body finds a solution that works in a time of need, it makes sense that it would stick with it. You can learn to track your dissociation, and by doing so, learn to recognize how it starts, what triggers it, and by catching it early, learn how to make your way back and be present. You can ask yourself, what is this state like for me? Are there consistent signs you're on your way out? What are the sensations in your body that go along with checking out? Is there an area that feels numb or frozen? Recognizing where you go and when is half the battle. You can focus, after that, you can focus on learning to make your way back. So healing practices that can help you in this process. Here are some of the common signs that you're experiencing a trigger. If you notice your muscles tensing, shallow breathing or holding your breath, spacing out or feeling floaty, parts of your brain feeling blank or frozen. This is that haywire smoke detector trying to convince you your house is on fire. But because you answered the questions in the safety checklist, you know you're not objectively in danger right now. So this gives you an opportunity to work on resolving some of these triggering situations. So here are some steps you can take to de-escalate. Acknowledge what you're feeling. Take slow, deep breaths and focus on the fact that you're safe now. Think about what caused it. Is this something that could be avoided in the future? Pay attention to your internal dialogue. Are the messages you're telling yourself empowering and soothing, or belittling and unkind? Sometimes we're hard on ourselves to avoid feelings of anger, hurt, or fear. Internal cruelty helps remove you from the present. Try telling yourself something neutral, like, I'm going to be okay, or something positive, like, I can do this. So let's talk about flying solo. Masturbation gets a bad rap. In the past, people were told it could cause insanity, blindness, and impotence. We now know it's a healthy way to explore your sexuality and learn about your body. It can be very helpful in sexual healing after sexual assault or abuse. Very often, triggers that would be set off with a partner will also show up with masturbation, but it allows you to practice handling those triggers in your own bed, at your own pace, and through your own experiences. It may bring up feelings of rage, shame, guilt, or sadness, but you can safely work past those in your own time, and it allows you to be present for your sensations and emotions. Masturbation can better equip you to communicate what you like or don't like with a future partner. It can also be an opportunity to bring a sense of self-care and playfulness to the healing process. Treat yourself to a fun sex toy or light a scented candle. This can be a part of making an effort to be kinder to yourself. Some resources that may be helpful include a Women's Touch Sexuality Resource Center in Madison, Wisconsin. It's a sex education resource center and sexual health product shop run by two women, a physician and a sex educator and counselor. They offer products and sexual health information for all ages, identities, orientations, and bodies. Smitten Kitten is a female-owned and operated shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, providing products and education. Dame is a company started by two women, one an engineer, who research and design toys specifically to meet women's needs. And I've included Emojibator because every time I see it, it makes me giggle. How could an eggplant vibrator not add playful lightness to the bedroom, right? It's like Shopkins for adults. I love that eggplant. If you have a partner, they can have an active role in your healing even when you're ready. Or they can have an active role in your healing when you're ready. Here are some suggestions to help you make your teamwork successful. Communication is key. It's your responsibility to share what feels good and what doesn't. Learning to communicate about sex and have actual conversations is important and valuable, even when you've been in a long-term relationship. Tell your partner what signs may indicate you're experiencing a trigger and what you want them to do if that happens. Your partner needs to respect and follow your lead. A partner who touches or moves forward without your consent can impair your healing process. Agree to clear guidelines, including what you're comfortable doing or not doing, and that you can stop or refuse at any time. It can be helpful if partners are mindful of the language they're using when talking about sex. Keeping it positive and healthy rather than words that imply violence, like bang or nail, can be really helpful also. Remember that sex is more than intercourse. Take time to explore intimacy without sex as the goal. Somatic practices work from an understanding that the mind, body, and emotions are one interconnected biological system. The dissociation some survivors experience creates a habit of mind-body disconnect that somatic practices can help address. Trauma can also make memory imprints on the body that somatic practices can help resolve. These practices include embodiment practices like grounding techniques. Kind of the best known grounding technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, where you breathe while you think about 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can either taste or 1 thing that you like. But even the breathing discussed earlier is a grounding technique, and there are many more out there that you can find easily that could be helpful. Yoga is another great way to kind of get in touch with your body and the sensations that you're feeling, and practice breathing techniques. Martial arts like Tai Chi can be really helpful and get you back into your body. Dance is another good option, and our mindful movement webinar in our series would be a good thing to try if you wanted to check that out. Meditation can also be helpful. So there are also, of course, more traditional resources that people can access that are really helpful. Counseling is highly recommended, and that can be individual or for couples. Individual counseling would probably be a great place to start. And then if your partner would like to help you in the healing process, having them join could be helpful. Making sure that the counselor that you're working with has some experience working with survivors of sexual abuse or assault is a good idea, as well as asking them if they have any training in human sexuality, or at the very least, that they're sex positive. Support groups are also very helpful. Family support group has some virtual options that are available, but you know, other communities have options available as well. These are some great books that I found while looking into resources. Healing Sex, a mind-body approach to healing sexual trauma is excellent, and I highly, highly recommend that book. The Sexual Healing Journey is another great book. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of people find it very helpful. The Body Keeps the Score is kind of a classic, and so that book is helpful as well. A thank you to Linda Poyer at Willow Creek Women's Clinic for her helpful input to the information that I have shared today. And also a reminder that the family planning clinics at the Eau Claire County Health Department and Chippewa Health Departments can be great resources for medical services and information about sexual health. And lastly, remember that everyone's journey is unique and the process isn't linear. Setbacks are likely, but so is progress. Set your own pace and terms and don't get discouraged. Sometimes time is another component to healing. All right. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. If anybody has any questions, we can address those.
I guess I can wait to see if anyone has questions in the chat, but Annette, I wanted to ask, and I think I know the answer to this question, just what could the role of an advocate be in helping someone navigate their kind of healing journey following sexual trauma and trying to maybe reclaim their sexuality? Is there a place for advocacy in this whole process?
Absolutely. I think advocacy-based counseling is a great place to start, and advocates have a great grasp on what resources are available in the local community. If medical attention is needed, of course, we have connections with that. Would know counselors in the area who would be sex positive and have trauma experience, and then I think just meeting with an advocate and talking about your experience, and sometimes just saying things out loud helps just kind of more normalize the experience. It doesn't feel like something you're having to carry around by yourself, right? And so that support can be kind of freeing and offer a little bit of maybe courage to move forward.
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective, because I know that having worked with survivors for many years, this topic can still be a challenging one, even in long-standing advocacy-based counseling relationships. I think there's a lot of maybe embarrassment or a sense of shame in even broaching the topic. And this information really gives survivors permission to have those conversations and view advocates as a great resource and someone to maybe test the waters with, in terms of, is what I'm experiencing normal? Is this something that other survivors have gone through? And I think it's a great privilege to be able to offer that kind of reassurance and, maybe give folks feedback that they aren't comfortable seeking in other areas of their life.
Yeah, it certainly provides a safe space, and survivors can be assured that you know, advocates have heard a lot. There's not much that, you know, someone can share that would be shocking. And so worrying about that reaction isn't something that you need to worry about with it when you're speaking with an advocate. So.
Are there any other questions, comments, conversations that are wanted to be had on this topic? Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending. I believe this webinar will be posted on a YouTube Family Support Center YouTube channel for viewing later on that can be shared with other folks. And of course, if there are any questions, giving us a call, sending an email, I think all that information is on the flyer that you would have used to register for this webinar as well. So
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.